My sister tried to steal my inheritance. I had all the proof. The courtroom door felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I pushed through it wearing the only suit I owned that wasn't covered in wrinkles, clutching my worn leather bag like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. My pulse was racing. My name is Emma Clark, and I was about to face the people who were supposed to love me most. The benches on their side were packed. My mother and father sat front and center, arms crossed like they'd already won. My older sister sat beside them, that smug little smile playing on her lips. My younger brother, barely 20, kept his eyes glued to the floor like he wanted it to swallow him whole. Their attorney sat there tapping his expensive pen against the table, grinning like this whole thing was just a formality before they took everything from me. My sister leaned forward, voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "You can barely take care of yourself. How are you supposed to handle money?" Mom let out that soft, pitying laugh she's perfected over the years. Dad just shook his head slowly, like I was too broken to even notice the knife going in. "I'll rise." The judge walked in. Older woman, silver hair pulled back tight, sharp eyes that seemed to see through everything. She took her seat and opened the file. "Counsel for the respondent, Emma Clark." I stood up. "Your Honor," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I am Emma Clark, and I'm representing myself." You could have heard a pin drop. The attorney's pen hit the floor. My sister's smile vanished instantly. Mom's mouth actually fell open. Dad's face turned purple. Only my little brother finally looked up, eyes red and wide. They thought dragging me to court over a $4 million inheritance was going to be easy. They had no idea what was coming. If you're watching this, drop a comment. Where are you from? What time is it where you are? And have you ever been completely underestimated by the people who should have had your back? Hit that like button if you're already mad for me. And subscribe right now because this story is about to get absolutely insane, and you won't want to miss what happens next. To understand why I was standing in that courtroom completely alone, you need to know what happened when I was 8 years old. Doctors diagnosed me with high-functioning autism back in 2003. My mom noticed I never talked to other kids at birthday parties. I'd rather organize my brother's toy cars by color and size than actually play with them. I could read spreadsheets before I could ride a bike, but making eye contact felt like staring into the sun. Instead of helping me, my parents sent me to a special school 40 miles away, while my sister stayed in town, became captain of the basketball team, and got her picture in the local paper every other week. At home, dinner conversations were always about her latest game or her perfect grades. I sat there quietly, counting cracks in the ceiling so I wouldn't have to see the disappointment in their eyes. The only person who never looked at me like I was broken was my grandfather, William Clark. Every Friday after school, he'd pull up in his old pickup truck, honk twice, and I'd run out with my backpack already ready. We'd drive 30 miles to his ranch, windows down, country music blasting. He taught me how to read contracts, how to spot when someone was trying to cheat you, how to keep records so tight that nobody could ever take advantage of you. "Emma," he'd say, handing me a fresh notebook, "the world is going to spend your whole life trying to convince you that you can't. Don't ever believe them." He made me initial every page we worked on together. When I was 12, he sat me down at the kitchen table, poured me my first cup of black coffee, and slid a thick stack of papers across the wood. It was an irrevocable trust. He'd taken out a $2 million life insurance policy on himself and rolled his ranch into it. I was the sole beneficiary when he passed. No co-trustees, no oversight committee, no family vote. Just me. He tapped the page with his weathered finger. "This is yours, kiddo. Nobody gets to touch it but you." He died 9 years later on a Tuesday afternoon in September. Massive heart attack. Gone before the ambulance even reached the property. The will reading happened in a law office downtown. The attorney read through the simple stuff first. My sister got the vacation cabin. Mom and Dad got the retirement accounts, worth about $400,000. Then he turned the page. "And to my granddaughter, Emma Marie Clark, I leave the entirety of the William Clark Irrevocable Trust, currently valued at $4 million, consisting of a life insurance policy and 1,400 acres of ranch land under long-term lease. I remember the air conditioner humming too loud. I remember Mom's hand tightening around Dad's until her knuckles went white. I remember my sister's head snapping toward me so fast her earrings swung. I remember the look that flashed across Mom's face. Shock, then something colder. Something calculating. Dad cleared his throat like he was about to object, but the attorney kept reading. Grandpa had insisted on a clause. Any beneficiary who challenged another beneficiary's share would forfeit everything. Mom's grip loosened. She forced a smile that never touched her eyes. That was the exact moment the temperature in the room changed. They didn't hug me on the way out. Nobody said congratulations. In the parking lot, my sister muttered. Gwen's grandpa felt sorry for her, loud enough for the receptionist to hear. Mom shushed her, but the damage was done. I drove home alone, windows up, radio off, trying to process the fact that the one person who ever truly believed in me had just handed me the kind of money most people never see in their lifetime, and the rest of my family had already started planning how to take it away. 2. My phone kept buzzing with notifications from the family group chat I was rarely part of. Mom's message popped up first. 7 tonight at Sarah's place. We all need to talk. I pulled into their driveway in the newer subdivision. 3 car garages, fake stone facades. Christmas lights still up even though it was barely December. My sister opened the door in yoga pants and an expensive fleece, gave me a quick hug that felt more like a pat down, and steered me toward the living room. David Hart was already sitting on the leather couch. Shiny shoes, expensive watch, thick folder open on the coffee table like he owned the place. Dad sat in the recliner nursing a beer. Mom hovered near the kitchen pouring wine for everyone except me. My brother slouched on the ottoman, scrolling through his phone with earbuds in, pretending he wasn't there. My sister handed me a bottle of water, cap still sealed, and slid a 20-page document across the marble countertop. Family Protection Agreement. She announced like it was a birthday gift. I flipped it open. Page after page of legal language, but the core was simple. I would immediately transfer the entire trust into a new joint account. Mom, Dad, and my sister would serve as co-trustees with unanimous voting rights. I would receive a monthly allowance of $2,000 for living expenses. The justification was printed in bold on page 5. Whereas Emma Marie Clark has been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, and the family has concerns regarding her capacity for independent financial management. I felt the heat crawl up my neck. My sister folded her arms. Just sign it, Emma. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Mom stepped closer, voice syrupy. Sweetie, we're only trying to protect you. You know big money can be overwhelming. I looked at Dad. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Just took another sip from his can. David Hart leaned forward, gold watch flashing under the lights. If you choose not to sign tonight, we'll file for guardianship within 72 hours. Once the petition is granted, you won't have authority over so much as a checking account. Your call. The room went quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I stared at the signature page, 3 blank lines. Patricia Clark, Stephen Clark, Sarah Mitchell. My line sat underneath, already highlighted in yellow. My brother finally pulled one earbud out. Can we just eat? He muttered. My sister shot him a look sharp enough to cut glass. I closed the folder. I'm not signing anything. Mom's fake smile cracked.
Emma, be reasonable.
No. I cut her off, voice calm but loud enough to echo. Grandpa made this trust irrevocable for a reason. He wanted me to have control, not you. Dad finally spoke, low and rough. He didn't understand how bad it really is with you. The words landed like a slap. I stood up, folder still in my hand. David Hart shrugged. Clock's ticking. 72 hours. I walked to the front door. Nobody followed. As I stepped onto the porch, the cold night air hit my face. Behind me, I heard my sister hiss, "Let her go. She'll come crawling back when she realizes she can't do this alone." I got in my car, set the unsigned agreement on the passenger seat, and drove home with the heat cranked and my hands shaking on the wheel. To that night, I sat at my kitchen table under a single bulb and read every single page again. The document wasn't just controlling. It was designed to make refusal look irrational. They'd attached my childhood education records. A letter from a school psychologist dated 15 years ago. Even a photo of me at 14 wearing noise, canceling headphones at my sister's graduation party, captioned evidence of ongoing social deficits. I took photos of every page with my phone, uploaded them to a private cloud, and went to bed with the lights on. The next morning, I woke to 17 missed calls and a string of texts from mom that started with, "We can still fix this," and ended with, "You're breaking your father's heart." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and started researching guardianship laws. I printed the forms they would need to file, highlighted the sections about clear and convincing evidence of incapacity, and bookmarked every case where an adult with autism had successfully fought one off, because I already knew they weren't bluffing, and neither was I. The mail carrier knocked on my apartment door 3 days later. I signed for the thick certified envelope, hands already shaking before I tore it open. 38 pages. Petition for appointment of guardian and conservator. They'd gone full nuclear. The allegations were printed in cold black ink. Emma Marie Clark is incapacitated by reason of severe autism spectrum disorder and is unable to manage her financial affairs or make informed decisions regarding her property. They claimed I couldn't live independently, that I required 24-hour supervision, that the $4 million trust was at imminent risk. Attached were exhibits I'd never seen, a psychiatric evaluation dated 6 months earlier, signed by a doctor whose name I didn't recognize, declaring me nonverbal in stressful situations and incapable of managing assets exceeding $50,000. There were grainy photos of me as a kid wearing a therapy helmet at a county fair, pulled from some old hard drive. Worst was the private social media post my sister had made 2 days earlier to a local moms group, trying to protect our late grandfather's legacy from someone who simply isn't capable. Prayers appreciated. 400 shares. 800 comments, most of them strangers offering sympathy for my poor family. My phone started blowing up. Former classmates, neighbors from when I was a kid, a text from an old coworker. Everything okay? Saw the post. Then radio silence. 2 days later, HR called me into the office. The partner who'd personally recruited me 3 years earlier wouldn't look me in the eye. "Until this guardianship matter is resolved," he said, sliding a letter across the desk, "we have to place you on unpaid administrative leave." Reputation risk. You understand. I understood perfectly. Back in my apartment, I sat on the floor surrounded by the petition pages spread out like crime scene photos. Every childhood struggle weaponized, every therapy note twisted. They'd even included a bank statement showing I once overdrafted by $19 in college, labeled pattern of fiscal irresponsibility. My brother texted once, "Sis, stop making this hard on everyone." I stared at the screen until it went dark. That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. The walls felt closer than ever. I opened my laptop and started searching case law until the sun came up. I learned that guardianships for adults with autism were rare but not impossible. Courts usually required an independent examiner, medical proof, and clear evidence I couldn't handle basic life tasks. I made a list. Rent paid on time for 8 years. Senior auditor title. Perfect driving record. No criminal history, no substance issues. I printed everything. I also learned something else. Once a guardianship is granted, the ward loses the right to hire their own attorney, sign contracts, vote, marry, or even decide where to live. The guardian gets total control. My family wanted to lock me in a legal cage and throw away the key. The next morning, I walked to the courthouse and filed my objection. The clerk raised an eyebrow but stamped it. I paid the filing fee with the credit card that still had my name on it. For now. Then I went to the library and spent 4 hours printing every financial record I'd had since age 18. Every tax return. Every lease. Every performance review. I built a binder labeled evidence of capacity and locked it in my safe. Because if they wanted to play dirty, I was done being the quiet kid in the corner. I started documenting everything. Screenshots of the social media post and comments. Copies of the psychiatric report. Emails from HR. I uploaded it all to an encrypted drive only I could access. And for the first time since the petition arrived, I felt something sharper than fear. Anger. Clean, focused, ice-cold anger. They thought they could reduce me to a diagnosis on paper and strip away everything Grandpa fought to give me. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. 2T that same night, sleep never came. I dragged Grandpa's old metal lockbox out from under the bed, fingers trembling as I spun the combination he taught me when I was 12. The lid creaked open. Hundreds of numbered envelopes filled every inch, exactly the way he always kept them. Receipts, leases, bank statements. Every piece of paper he ever touched organized like a library. I started with envelope 47, the one labeled Trust Original in his blocky handwriting. There it was. The full irrevocable trust, signed at a title company years ago. Page 9 carried the clause, underlined in red pen. Any beneficiary who files suit or attempts to deprive another beneficiary of their share automatically forfeits their entire interest, with all assets immediately redirected to the contingent charitable remainder trust for neurodiversity support. Grandpa had added a handwritten note in the margin. They'll try Emma. This protects you. I kept digging. Envelope 112 held something that made my stomach drop. Bank statements from a separate savings account Grandpa kept. Over the last 8 months of his life, while he was in the hospital too weak to hold a pen, someone had withdrawn exactly $180,000 in 12 separate transactions. Each withdrawal carried the stamps, authorized by durable power of attorney, and bore signatures that were supposed to be his. They weren't. The loops were too perfect, the pressure too even. Forged. I sat back on the carpet, papers scattered around me like fallen leaves. Mom and my sister had been the only ones with power of attorney after his stroke. They drained his personal savings while he couldn't fight back, then turned around and claimed I was the one who couldn't handle money. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold my phone. I texted Maria Santos, the senior auditor I shared a cubicle with. She'd become my work friend over late-night projects and coffee runs. Need a huge favor. Can you pull statements tomorrow without anyone noticing? She replied instantly. On it. Meet me at the side door 7 a.m. There's. The next morning, I drove to the office before the parking lot filled. Maria slipped out in her coat, handed me a flash drive, and whispered, "Everything from the estate file they sent us last year for tax work." I copied the power of attorney withdrawals too. Be careful. I hugged her so hard she laughed nervously. Back home, I overnighted the originals, plus Maria's files, to a forensic accountant I found online. His website promised 48-hour turnaround on fraud cases. I paid the rush fee with my last clean credit card. I paced my tiny apartment, checking email every 5 minutes. The place smelled like stale coffee and printer ink. I kept replaying Mom's syrupy voice. David Hart's smug countdown. The social media comments calling me poor thing and a tragic. Every notification felt like another brick on my chest. At 20:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. My brother. Sis, I'm freaking out. I have something you need to see. Can we meet tomorrow? Just us. I stared at the screen. He'd barely spoken to me since the will reading. He was 20, freshman year, living off the allowance Dad still gave him. Whatever he had must be big if he was risking Mom's wrath this late. I typed back. Main Street Diner, 9 a.m. corner booth. I finally collapsed on the couch, still wearing jeans, lockbox open beside me like a loyal dog. For the first time since the petition landed, hope flickered. Not warm, not comforting, just a cold, sharp spark, enough to keep me breathing. The forensic report arrived the next afternoon while I waited. Subject: preliminary findings, clear evidence of forgery. The psychiatrist's signature on the evaluation was lifted from an old hospital consent form and digitally pasted. The letterhead belonged to a clinic that closed years ago. The withdrawals from Grandpa's savings account showed identical pen pressure across 12 different dates. Impossible for a man on heavy pain medication. I printed everything. 3-hole punched it. Slid it into a fresh binder labeled, "Va Exhibit B Ses." My brother walked into the diner 10 minutes late, hood up, eyes darting like he expected Mom to appear from behind the counter. He slid into the booth and pushed a USB drive across the table. "Before you open this," he whispered, voice cracking. "I didn't know they were going to use my phone. They made me take those old pictures of you with the helmet. Said it was just for family memories." I plugged the drive into my laptop under the table. Dozens of screenshots. Email chains between Mom, my sister, and David Hart. Subject lines like "how to make the evaluation look official" and "timing the social media post for maximum sympathy." The one message from my sister dated 3 days after I refused to sign. Fair if the guardianship goes through, we split the allowance 50-50 after expenses. Ethan gets his tuition covered. Deal. My brother's eyes filled. I didn't want any part of this, Emma. I swear. They said you'd never notice. I reached across and squeezed his hand. He squeezed back hard, like he was 9 again and afraid of thunder. I paid for his untouched coffee, told him to lay low, and promised we'd fix this together. By the time I drove home, the spark of hope had grown into something steady. I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was about to turn their own weapons against them. For the past 3 years, nobody in my family had the slightest clue I was living two completely separate lives. Every weekday, I drove to work, sat in audit meetings, smiled at the right times, and came home looking like the same quiet Emma they'd always known. But the second my apartment door clicked shut, I became someone else. I brewed a pot of black coffee, locked the deadbolt, and opened my laptop to CPA review materials. 4 nights a week, sometimes 5, I studied until the numbers blurred. Regulation in the spring. Financial accounting in summer. Auditing in fall. Business concepts over Christmas break. While everyone else posted family photos online, I scheduled each exam in testing centers that were deliberately far away, so no one would accidentally see me walking out. I passed all 4 sections on the first try. 6 months ago, the state board mailed me my CPA license. I framed it, then hid the frame behind winter coats in the closet. No party. No social media post. No announcement at Sunday dinner. The license was armor, and I wasn't ready to show it yet. The morning after my brother handed me the USB drive, the forensic accountant's final report landed in my inbox. 47 pages of damning detail. The psychiatrist's signature on the severe autism evaluation was 100% a digital forgery, lifted from a hospital discharge summary and pasted onto new letterhead. The clinic listed as the examiner's office had been shuttered for years. The ink analysis on Grandpa's forged withdrawals showed identical pressure patterns across 12 different dates. Impossible for a man whose hand trembled from painkillers. The report concluded with the words every defense attorney dreams of. Clear and convincing evidence of fraud and elder financial abuse. I printed 2 copies, one for court, one for me, and I felt my pulse finally slow for the first time in weeks. That same afternoon my brother texted, "Can we talk?" Same place. I met him at the little coffee shop near campus. He looked like he hadn't slept. Hood up, hands wrapped around a cup he wasn't drinking. He slid another USB drive across the table. "This is everything from Mom's laptop. I cloned the drive when she was in the shower last night. I feel sick doing it, but here. I took it with steady fingers this time. You okay?" He shook his head. "They keep saying it's for my tuition, for the family ranch mortgage, but it's not. It's greed. I'm done." I reached over and hugged him right there, between the mismatched chairs and the smell of burnt espresso. He was taller than me now, but he still folded into the hug like the scared kid who used to hide behind my legs at fireworks shows. For the first time in years, I didn't feel completely alone. Back in my apartment, I plugged in the new drive. Hundreds of emails. Drafts of the guardianship petition with track changes from David Hart. Spreadsheets calculating how much monthly care expenses they could justify taking before the court raised eyebrows. A group chat titled Project If, where my sister wrote 4 months earlier de live, once the judge sees the fake evil plus the social media sympathy wave, she'll sign the guardianship in a heartbeat. Then we move the trust assets into the LLC and nobody can touch us. A mom replied with a thumbs up emoji. I sat back and let the rage settle into something colder, more useful. Over the next 10 days, I turned my living room into a war room. 3 binders, color-coded. Red fraudulent medical records and forensic report. Blue forged withdrawals, bank records, power of attorney abuse. Green emails, texts, and the full chain of conspiracy from my brother's drives. I added my CPA license, my last 5 years of tax returns, utility bills in my name only, lease agreements, car title. Everything that proved I'd managed my life perfectly well without supervision. I tabbed every page. Created an index. Made flashcards of the guardianship statutes so I could quote them in my sleep. I filed a motion for summary judgment attached to my objection, citing the clause and requesting sanctions for filing in bad faith. The clerk accepted it without comment, but I saw her eyes widen when she read the exhibit list. Every night, I rehearsed in front of the mirror, not dramatic speeches. Just facts delivered flat and fast. I practiced until my voice stopped shaking when I said the word forgery. I bought a new suit. The first one I'd purchased in 5 years. I hung it in the closet next to the hidden CPA frame. My brother texted updates from inside the house. Mom bragging to friends that the hearing would be open and shut. My sister shopping online for a new SUV. Once everything settles, I saved every screenshot. The calendar on my wall had one date circled in red. The hearing. 10 days away. I wasn't scared anymore. I was ready. 2. I woke up at 4 long before the alarm. The apartment was dead quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I showered, pulled my hair into a low ponytail, and put on the new suit. No jewelry. No makeup. Just the clothes and the evidence. I loaded 3-color, coded binders and the old metal lockbox into the back seat of my car, then drove through empty streets to the courthouse. Dawn was still an hour away. The parking lot held only a couple of maintenance trucks. I sat in the driver's seat with the engine off, watching my breath fog the windshield, rehearsing one last time. At 18:25, I walked through security, nodded to the same clerk who'd stamped my objection weeks earlier, and took my place at the respondent's table. The gallery filled slowly. Mom, Dad, and my sister filed in wearing their Sunday best, faces tight. David Hart adjusted his tie like he was heading to a victory party. My brother slipped in last, sat 3 rows behind them, and gave me the smallest nod. The bailiff called us to rise. Judge Eleanor Mitchell entered. Silver hair, black robe, no nonsense. She had a reputation for cutting through family drama faster than anyone in the state. Case 2025 DV 187. In reguardianship of Emma Mary Clark. She announced it like she'd seen 1,000 cases just like it. Counsel for the petitioners. David Hart stood, all smiles. David Hart on behalf of the petitioners. Your Honor. And counsel for the respondent, I rose. Emma Clark, appearing pros, Your Honor. I filed my appearance and CPA license last month. A ripple went through their side. Mom whispered something sharp to Dad. Judge Mitchell flipped through the docket. I've reviewed the petition, the objection, and the rather voluminous exhibits filed by Ms. Clark. We'll proceed directly to argument. Ms. Clark, you may begin. I opened the red binder first. Your Honor, the petitioners seek guardianship over an adult with no cognitive impairment. Exhibit A is the original irrevocable trust executed by William Clark. Page 9 contains the clause highlighted. Any beneficiary who contests another's share forfeits everything. I slid the trust across the bench. The judge took it, eyes scanning. Exhibit B, I continued, opening the blue binder. Forensic accounting report proving the medical evaluation attached to the petition is fraudulent in its entirety. The psychiatrist's signature is a digital composite. The clinic closed 6 years ago. David Hart shot up. Objection, speculative. Overruled. The judge said without looking up. Continue. Exhibit C. Bank records showing $180,000 withdrawn from the decedent's personal account under a forged power of attorney while he was hospitalized. I placed the final green binder on the bench, and exhibit emails and chat logs recovered from the petitioner's own devices, detailing fabrication of evidence and intent to divert trust assets into a private LLC. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear Mom's breathing hitch. Judge Mitchell spent 20 minutes reading, turning pages with deliberate calm. David Hart tried twice more to interrupt. Both times she raised a hand and he sat. Finally, she removed her glasses and looked straight at their table. Mr. Hart, do your clients have any explanation for forged medical records, forged signatures on financial documents, or email discussions about manufacturing evidence to mislead this court? Hart opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Your Honor, this appears to be a family misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding. The judge cut in, voice like steel. There is clear and convincing evidence of fraud on the court. She turned to Mom, Dad, and my sister. Mrs. Clark, Mr. Clark, Mrs. Mitchell, do any of you wish to explain these documents? Dead silence. My sister stared at the floor. Dad's face had gone gray. Mom's lips trembled, but no sound came out. Judge Mitchell picked up her gavel. By the express terms of the clause in the William Clark Irrevocable Trust, the petitioners have forfeited all beneficial interest. The petition for guardianship is denied and dismissed with prejudice. All trust assets remain solely with Emma Marie Clark. Petitioners are jointly and severally liable for respondents' court costs and a civil sanction of $25,000 for filing in bad faith. The gavel cracked once. David Hart slumped into his chair like someone had pulled his spine out. My sister let out a sound halfway between a gasp and a sob. Mom covered her face. Dad just stared straight ahead, jaw clenched so tight I thought it might shatter. I stood perfectly still while the clerk handed me the signed order. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't crack. The judge looked at me one last time. Ms. Clark, you are free to go. Good luck. I gathered my binders, nodded to my brother. He nodded back, eyes shining, and walked out of the courtroom without looking behind me. Outside, the sun had risen over the mountains, bright and cold and completely indifferent. Justice tasted exactly like Grandpa always said it would. Quiet, final, and earned. 30 days after the gavel fell, the consequences arrived one by one, quiet and merciless. First came the certified letter from the bank. Foreclosure proceedings on the ranch. Mom and Dad had taken out a reverse mortgage for $580,000 over the last decade, betting the equity would keep growing. Without the expected trust money, the bank called the note. The sale date was set for spring. My sister's husband filed for divorce the same week. Turns out the $420,000 in credit card debt, new cars, designer handbags, that kitchen remodel, was in both their names. He walked away with nothing but his truck and a clean credit score. The vacation cabin sold at auction for less than the outstanding mortgage. She moved into a one-bedroom rental and took a part-time receptionist job at a dental clinic. My brother got the email from the university mid-semester. Tuition payment bounced. Dad had pulled the plug. He dropped out, packed his pickup, and took a ranch hand job 30 miles outside town. $8 an hour plus a bunkhouse bunk. Every Sunday night a new text appeared. I'm sorry, Emma. I read them, then left them on read. The full $4 million from the trust, now grown a little with careful investments, transferred into the William Clark Neurodiversity Foundation, the day the judge signed the final order. I filed the nonprofit paperwork myself, named myself executive director, and set the mission exactly as Grandpa would have wanted. Scholarships and coaching for autistic and neurodiverse adults pursuing finance and accounting careers. The first 5 recipients were already enrolled in community college bookkeeping programs, living on stipends that didn't come with lectures about what they could or couldn't handle. I bought a modest 2-bedroom house, blue siding, wraparound porch, walking distance to downtown. The day I closed, I hung Grandpa's old ledger on the wall above my new desk. My shingle went up the following Monday. Emma Clark, CPA, Fiduciary Advocacy and Forensic Accounting. My very first client was a 34-year-old man whose parents had tried the exact same guardianship play. We beat it in 42 days. To Mom sent one email. Subject line blank. Emma, your father and I were wrong. We let fear and greed get the better of us. I know I don't deserve it, but if there's any way you could find it in your heart to forgive me. I read it twice in the quiet of my office, cursor hovering over reply. Then I dragged it to the trash and emptied the folder. My brother's last message came on a Thursday night. Just a photo attachment. Grandpa leaning against the old truck, squinting into the sun, arms slung around 12-year-old me holding a ledger like it was made of gold. Underneath 4 words. I'm sorry, sis. I saved the picture to my phone, set it as my lock screen for exactly 30 seconds, then blocked the number. I didn't hate them. Hate takes energy I no longer had to spare. Forgiveness wasn't owed. It was a gift. And they'd spent every chance I ever gave them. Some mornings, I drive out to the ranch, now leased to a young couple who send me quarterly reports and perfect rent checks. I walk the same fence lines Grandpa taught me to read. Feel the same wind that used to whip through his white hair, and I know exactly what he'd say if he could see me now. He'd tip his hat, grin, and tell me I did good. That's enough. I still get calls from people all over the state, quiet voices asking if it's really possible to fight family and win. I always answer the same way. Yes. And you won't be alone. Because the little girl who once lined up toy cars by wheel size grew up to build something bigger than revenge. She built proof. Proof that the world can try to convince you you're less, but if you keep the receipts, literal and figurative, One day you get to hand them back and watch the whole story change. Grandpa was right all along. I could, and I did,